Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Joining me tonight as guest curator is Sherry Thomas, writer for the Aquarian Weekly. Sherry, thank you so much for joining me on My Weekly Mixtape.
Thank you, Brian. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you. And since it's your first time on the program, I get to start by asking you my first timer's question, which is, what does the word mixtape mean to you?
Oh my gosh. It means so much. It means my childhood, basically. I had one of those large boom boxes with 2 cassette tapes, and I would make mixtapes for my friends, for myself, off of the radio station, or using my cassettes to express my feelings.
Well, tonight is the first in a new style of episode at My Weekly Mixtape, that being the Songs About series. This is where we pick a random object and craft a playlist dedicated to that object. And we couldn't have started with a better opening topic than the reason I love podcasting so much, and that is my love of the radio growing up. Sherry, what were you looking for in the songs that you brought to the discussion this evening?
Well, Brian, basically they were songs that I loved, that I listened to on the radio, or songs that just grabbed my attention.
And for me, it's definitely those two things. And adding into that, I wanted the radio to be kind of a focal point of the song's theme as best as possible. Sometimes the word radio, at least in some songs on my bank, might not actually be in the song title, but they're a central part of the song. So I'll be very curious to see how often the word radio comes up in the songs we're choosing tonight. Well, let's get down to business. Tonight, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Sherry and I will be curating a Songs About the Radio mixtape, and we'll use the old cassette deck approach. Sherry, as my special guest, will begin side A with her first song choice, and then I'll add a song that I feel best follows up that choice. We'll then flip-flop choosing songs until we've mapped out 10 songs for side A. We'll then give our mixtape a proverbial flip, and we'll map out side B, only this time I'll kick things off with Sherry choosing second. Our overall goal for the episode is to craft the best Songs About the Radio mixtape possible through only 20 songs. At the end of the show, you can take our conversation to the next level by visiting the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com to give our final mixtape a listen via the embedded playlist. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. There you can enjoy ad-free episodes of the show, become a future guest, and so much more. And a few of the Patreon mixtapers chimed in with the songs they would use to kick off a Songs About the Radio playlist, and they certainly didn't disappoint. Seeker chimed in with Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio by the Ramones, which is an all-time Ramones favorite for him, and me as well. Ben from the Too Vague podcast chimed in with On Your Radio by Joe Jackson, which he had picked in his bank of songs from episode 31, the ultimate 80s and some 70s New Wave Classics playlist, but you'll have to go back to that episode to see if that song actually made the final playlist. Sean Goff chimed in with Mexican Radio by Wall of Voodoo. David Lee Smith chimed in with the badass Heard It on the X by that little old band from Texas, ZZ Top. Chad Lamassa chimed in with 4 songs that he couldn't choose between, which was 21 Pilots Car Radio, R.E.M's Radio Free Europe, Nirvana's Radio Friendly Unit Shifter, and Rage Against the Machine's Guerrilla Radio. He then asked if I could choose one for him, but since all 4 of the songs are good, who needs to choose? Philip Bergman chimed in with Oh No, the Radio by Owsley, along with Songs About Rain by Gary Allan. Even though the radio is more of a backdrop, he said it's still an interesting country song to include in the mix. Jen Fink chimed in with Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles, saying There's No Other. And finally, brand new Patreon mixtaper Christopher Style chimed in with what he feels is an obvious one, Rush, The Spirit of Radio. First off, Christopher, love that song choice, but more importantly, welcome to the Patreon Mixtaper family. Looking forward to talking music with you in the forum. And once again, if you'd like to chime in on future episodes of the show, please consider becoming a Patreon Mixtaper at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. With that said, Sherry, I'm going to officially press the record button on this mixtape, and the floor is yours. What song did you stop on when you were spinning the dial, looking for your Songs About the Radio track 1?
Well, I had to go with my obvious choice, which was Radio, Radio by Elvis Costello and the Attractions. It's just a timeless classic new wave song, and it comes with controversy. So Elvis Costello was going to be on Saturday Night Live, and he replaced Less Than Zero with Radio, Radio, and that subsequently got him banned from Saturday Night Live for 11 years.
Yeah, I never quite understood why pivoting from one song to another would result in banning. I mean, look, Less Than Zero is a great song, and sure, it wasn't planned, but for me, Radio, Radio is my preferred track between the two. It was written 4 years earlier as a Bruce Springsteen-inspired song called Radio Soul, but then he reworked it into the one that we've all come to know and love, which was a criticism of British radio at the time, 1978's This Year's Model. And one of my favorite Saturday Night Live moments was when the Beastie Boys were performing on SNL in 1999, and they opened with Sabotage, but before they kicked into the song, Elvis Costello stopped them, reenacted the moment you just talked about, and then they went into Radio, Radio with the Beastie Boys as Elvis's backing band. It's probably one of my favorite SNL live moments.
Oh, it's definitely a classic moment.
So following up Elvis Costello, I kind of want to stay in that indie vibe. And the band I want to go with, I actually have two songs sitting right next to each other on the list, and they both work perfectly. One of which was what Patreon mixtaper Chad Lamassa chimed in with, which was Radio Free Europe. And that will work 100% in this spot. However, the band's Out of Time album hit for me at a perfect age where I resonate with that album a little bit more than I do some of the earlier R.E.M. material. So I'm going to go with the opening track because I'm a sucker for album openers, and the fourth single from that album. And I'm going to go with R.E.M.'s Radio Song. It features guest appearances from KRS-One and the B-52's Kate Pearson, who also appeared with them on Shiny Happy People. The song reached number 75 on the Billboard US Cash Box Top 100. Not a massive single for the band, but I always loved this one. And while not making the soundtrack itself, which is something I'll never understand, the song does appear in the classic 90s movie Singles. I could really hear Radio Song on that soundtrack. I feel like that was a missed opportunity. But following up Elvis Costello's Radio, Radio, I'm going to go with R.E.M.'s Radio Song.
Well, that's a great choice. And yes, it should have been included on a single soundtrack. Singles was probably one of my favorite 90s movies. Just everything from the grunge movement and the storyline, it just captured me. So I definitely agree with that choice.
All right, now we are going to be following up Elvis Costello and R.E.M. What's next?
Well, I think I want to mix it up since this is a mixtape.
Sure.
I want to go a little bit to the left or to the right of the dial, dependent on where you were located back in the day, with Run-D.M.C radio station.
Nice.
Yeah, that song just, as soon as I heard it, it just blew me away. And they actually use a sample from a guy's song called Sing Sing. And it's just so cool. It's just, what you would expect from them. It's classic Run-D.M.C.
1988's Tougher Than Leather, one of my absolute favorite Run-D.M.C albums. And Sherry, I got to applaud the deeper cut because if I'm not mistaken, that was never released as a single.
No, it wasn't. But that album, as soon as it came out, I picked it up. And that was one of the first songs that made me a believer in Run-D.M.C. And I've been a long time fan. So it just has the attitude and the sass that Run-D.M.C has. And, you can't beat the rhythm with them. They're just amazing.
And I will say, as I'm typing out our virtual J card for our mixtape, I do applaud the synergy as we have back-to-back bands that feature 3 letters separated by periods with the R.E.M. and the D.M.C. So I know that's a real nerd thing there, but bravo on that. You had mentioned one of the samples on this track. 2 other songs that radio samples is Public Enemy's Bring the Noise and LL Cool J's Dear Yvette. And I think that's where I'm going to lean into this because radio station teases you with some LL Cool J. And when I think LL Cool J, I want to hear I Can't Live Without My Radio. So following up Run-D.M.C's radio station, we're going to go with LL Cool J's I Can't Live Without My Radio, the opening track, once again, sorry, from his 1985 debut album, Radio. It's his love song to the boombox, produced by LL along with Rick Rubin, his collaborator through that time. It ranked number 12 on VH1's 100 Greatest Songs of Hip Hop. And we just celebrated 50 years of hip hop, and LL was such a huge part of those celebrations. And this song was one of the keys to hip hop having that longevity over 50 years. Even a few years down the road, if you listen to Eazy-E's Easy Does It album and you heard the song Radio from him, the line, "And your radio's deaf when my record's on," comes from I Can't Live Without My Radio. It's a classic hip hop anthem about the boombox. So I feel like what a great way to come out of Run-D.M.C, keep that classic old school 80s hip hop vibe going with LL Cool J's I Can't Live Without My Radio.
That's a fantastic song, Brian. I love it. I that was in my alternate choice, but I had to go with Run-D.M.C. But I'm glad that you chose LL Cool J because he's a, ladies love Cool J.
So now you get to follow up a pair of indie rock songs and a pair of hip hop songs. Where do we go from here?
Oh, boy, what a choice. I think I'm going to go with a song that I skated to at the roller rink many, many times. And it was just one of the penultimate songs from Donna Summer, which is on the radio. And as a matter of fact, it was on the radio all of the time.
Yeah.
And it was, produced and arranged by Giorgio Moroder. And it's just a wall of sound, a wall of disco sound.
Originally written for the 1980 film Foxes, it was included on her Greatest Hits compilation on the radio, obviously, Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2, and reached number 5 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100. For some reason, I thought that was a number 1 hit. I'm actually surprised that it wasn't. And a funny thing about this song, if you grew up in the 80s like I did and you ever stayed home sick from school, you know that old home from school starter pack meme, which was saltines, chicken noodle soup, and The Price is Right on the TV. This was the song that played when they gave away stereos or jukeboxes. So for some reason, every time I hear this song, you think roller rinks, I think The Price is Right. I don't know.
Well, I use that starter pack every once in a while. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. But yes, I definitely remember the song being included on The Price is Right.
Well, coming out of that, I think I'm going to pivot musically a little bit. And to quote a line from Happy Gilmore, we're going to go with The Price is Wrong, because this song's kind of a darker story by one of my favorite artists of all time, and that is Tom Petty. And I'm going to go off of his 2002 album of the same name. It's the lead single and, once again, opening track, The Last DJ. Reached number 22 on the Billboard US Mainstream Rock Tracks charts. And Petty had explained that the song was about a DJ in Jacksonville, Florida, who became so frustrated with his inability to play what he wanted that he moved to Mexico to get his freedom back. And the song is sung by a narrator who's a fan of that DJ. This song actually created a lot of controversy for Tom Petty because Clear Channel stations banned the song for being quote unquote anti-radio. And I think, if anything, that just made the song more infamous. And that's something that Petty took a lot of pride in. So following up Donna Summer, it's my first musical 180 of the night, but it's a good one because it's a song that we have to talk about tonight. Tom Petty, The Last DJ.
Yes, and that DJ, when he passed away, the song was used as tribute on many radio stations, as well as satellite radio, and posts on Facebook, Instagram, X, all over the place. And it just personifies the person that Tom Petty was describing to a T.
It's some of his storytelling finest, that song.
Yes. And I don't mind the switch up. That's what a mixtape is for, right?
Yeah, of course. And now you get to switch it up. We're going from Donna Summer to Tom Petty to what?
Well, I chose Everclear's AM radio.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I chose that because the song, it just invokes nostalgia of riding in the car with your family, listening to the AM radio, and they played everything from rock to country to disco. Everything was on that radio station. And I know a lot of people, including myself, had the AM radio on with their parents and would listen to all sorts of different genres of music. And before MTV, that was the MTV of radio, the AM radio.
What a fun, uplifting song. This one just always puts a smile on my face. It kind of harkens back to the days of that old school AM radio where AM was the traditional time when music was played. It has that feel, 60s, 70s, but it's still a modern song. And obviously the happiness comes from their Songs from an American Movie Volume 1, Learning How to Smile album. So it kind of fits that vibe. If you're an Everclear fan, I do want to invite you to head into the My Weekly Mixtape back catalog and head back to episode 29, the Ultimate Everclear playlist. That features a one-on-one interview with Art Alexakis from the band, and we talk about songs from across the entire Everclear discography. So anything that I could say about AM radio or Everclear in general is said much better by Art in that episode, so I'm going to default to him on that one. But musically, I'm going to have a little bit of fun here, Sherry. You've got Everclear, an AM radio, which kind of, again, harkens back to a different sound. And there's a song that I know will go perfect here, but it'll be even perfecter. I know that's not a word, but even more perfect than the original, even though the original is amazing and I love the original and it's an iconic, important song for many reasons. Musically, this cover version will pair up very nicely with Everclear. So I am going to go off of 1998's soundtrack to The Wedding Singer, and I'm going to go with the Presidents of the United States of America's cover of the Buggles' Video Killed the Radio Star. It was originally recorded in 1979 and it's topped the charts in 16 countries, only reached 40 on the Billboard US Hot 100, so it was a top 40 hit. However, in the US, top 40 hit aside, it's always going to be remembered as the video that kicked off MTV, which I think makes the song important. And like I said, I love the original, and even Patreon mixtaper Jen Fink chimed in with that one. But coming out of Everclear, the Presidents back to back sounds pretty damn cool. And I do love my cover songs, so this is kind of a way to sneak one in here.
Well, I agree. And, Brian, I was there. I watched the television when Rocket launched and MTV became what it was, which was this portal into a musical world that I had never experienced before, and my life was changed. I think I watched MTV nonstop from 1981 until 1994.
Is that when they stopped playing music videos?
Around that time, yes.
All right. So what are you going to follow up Video Killed the Radio Star with?
Well, I love the Beatles, one of my all-time favorite bands. They don't have a radio song, so I had to go to the next choice, which is a solo member. And I went with George Harrison's Devil's Radio.
Nice.
Yeah, and that song was inspired by a church billboard. And if someone has something to say about religion or politics, it's going to be a Beatle, but it's a fun song too. And I love George's fun side.
Yeah, shockingly, it wasn't commercially released as a single. It was only released as a promotional single. And even then, it reached number 4 on the Billboard album rock tracks chart. So I think that just speaks to the strength of the song, and the lineup that George had on this song is literally insanity. It's George Harrison, obviously, on lead vocals and rhythm guitar. Jeff Lynne, who produced the album, who you also might know he did the Traveling Wilburys with, on bass, keyboards, and backing vocals. Some guy named Elton John on piano. Eric Clapton on lead guitar. Ray Cooper on percussion. And, to fill the Beatles' quota, Ringo Starr on drums. So you got half the Beatles on this track as well. The song was produced by Jeff Lynne and served as an inspiration for the songs that he would go on to produce for Tom Petty's Full Moon Fever and Into the Great Wide Open albums. So given that connection to Tom Petty, it might not surprise a lot of people when they ask me what my favorite George Harrison album is, and I say Cloud 9, and I skip over All Things Must Pass. There's a reason, and that is because Tom Petty is my favorite artist. The connection to George through the Traveling Wilburys and all the interwoven lineups that happen between Cloud 9, Full Moon Fever, Roy Orbison, and the Traveling Wilburys album, to me, is just such an awesome time in music.
It was, and I have to agree with you there, because that whole era was just, it was 3 living legends working with each other, with other living legends, and just created a soundscape of awesomeness. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. And I will also say to the Beatles fans out there, and I mean this, zero disrespect to All Things Must Pass. It's a masterpiece. It's an absolute masterpiece.
Oh, I agree 100%.
And now to close out side A, there's no way, like, artist wise, I'm going to top having a Beatle. So what I'm going to do is go with a song that I think sums up my love of the radio and my love of the format. I'm a 25-year radio broadcasting veteran. I grew up laying on my bedroom floor, listening to my boombox, recording songs off the radio, hoping one day to be a DJ. And I did that in college, and then I went into the backside of things where I was working more in operations and productions and actually on the air. This podcast is kind of the way that I kind of scratch my on-air itch, so to speak. Shout out to my friends at the Itch Rock Radio and Podcast for copping their name for that metaphor. But the song I'm going to go with was actually this artist's last top 40 hit. It reached number 3 on the Billboard US Hot 100. Now, this song was released a few months after Hungry Eyes, which was Eric Carmen's massive hit from the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, which, believe it or not, only reached number 4. Now, don't get me wrong, the legacy of Hungry Eyes because of the Dirty Dancing soundtrack makes the song the one that most people think of when you say, name an Eric Carmen song. They go to Hungry Eyes. But for me, I go to Make Me Lose Control from the best of Eric Carmen. I bought this 45 as soon as it came out. And while the word radio is not mentioned in the title of the song, it's the central theme of the track. It's the chorus. Turn the radio up for that sweet sound. Hold me close. Never let me go. Keep this feeling alive. Make Me Lose Control. Some of the songs referenced in the lyrics include Uptown by the Crystals, Stand By Me by Benny King, Be My Baby by the Ronettes, and Back in My Arms Again by the Supremes. This song just always puts a smile on my face. Every time it comes on, my wife knows I am going to do what the song tells me and turn the radio up. So closing out side A, Eric Carmen's Make Me Lose Control.
You know, Brian, I love that song. It supersedes Hungry Eyes just because it's such a fun song. I love it. And I was a college DJ too. Shout out to college radio.
Yeah, they all gave us that start, right? Well, there you have it, mixtapers. Side A of our Songs About the Radio playlist, which consists of Eric Costello and the Attractions' Radio, R.E.M's radio song, Run-D.M.C's radio station, LL Cool J's I Can't Live Without My Radio, Donna Summer's On the Radio, Tom Petty's The Last DJ, Everclear's AM radio, Presidents of the United States of America, Video Killed the Radio Star, George Harrison's Devil's Radio, and Eric Carmen's Make Me Lose Control. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Now, Sherry, why don't you tell people a little bit about the Aquarian Weekly and what your role is there?
Okay, well, I've been a music journalist since 1993, and I started writing for the Aquarian Weekly, I want to say in 1998, and I've been writing for them on and off throughout the years, but have just recently rejoined as a staff writer and columnist about 7 years ago. So it's an iconic publication. I love everything about it. I used to use that as my Bible for places to go check out a band or find out where the latest concert was going to be. I would gather my friends. We would sit down with a copy and plot out our next few weeks. Now, I'd really enjoy writing for them. The editor-in-chief is amazing, and it's just a pleasure to be with them. The Aquarian Weekly is inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame archives, so I can say that my writings have been included in the Rock Hall, which is pretty damn cool, I think.
That's pretty damn cool. That's extremely damn cool. I have been a reader of the Aquarian for decades. That was my Bible when it came to what I was going to do, whether it be concerts I was going to go see at the Birch Hill or at Club Benet or all in New York City. That's how I found out what was happening. That's how I discovered new bands that I might not be hearing on the radio at the time. That was something where I knew if I was in a record store and they had a copy of an Aquarian, that was a record store I wanted to be at. For some reason, it felt like a status symbol to me to see the Aquarian at a record store. And I'll tell you, there were plenty of times that I would walk out of the record store if I couldn't find any albums I want. If there was a new edition of the Aquarian out, you bet your ass I was walking out with that one.
Well, you mentioned Birch Hill and Club Benet. I went to those clubs rather frequently myself, and it just gave you a feeling of something tangible to look at. And as a matter of fact, my first introduction into the Aquarian Weekly was for my college radio show. I sent an inquiry to the paper to list my name and address for unsigned bands to submit their demo tapes for airplay on my radio show. And do you know that my mailbox was stacked to the max for years because of that?
And there's a fairly good chance one of my band's CDs is in that pile as well.
It was fun.
Never underestimate the power of good press. With that, we are going to flip over our proverbial mixtape and begin side B. And this time I'm going to kick things off. And I am going to go with a song that astonishes me is not a top 40 hit for this band, because this is a classic rock staple, but it only reached number 51 on the Billboard US Hot 100. And that is Rush's The Spirit of Radio from 1980's Permanent Waves. If you're a Rush fan, I'm sure you, along with me, are in shock that New World Man is their only top 40 hit. It reached number 21 in 1982. And I also want to take this moment to again give a welcome and shout out to brand new Patreon mixtaper Christopher Style, who chimed in with this track as well. And if you're a Rush fan, episode 52, the Ultimate Rush Playlist, which features fellow Pantheon Podcast Network mate Steve from the Something for Nothing, a Rush Fancast episode. If you want to get a Rush fix, that is the episode to do it. But for tonight, The Spirit of Radio lives in, hell, The Spirit of Radio by Rush.
That's a great pick. I can't believe that it didn't crack the top 40.
I'm shocked that Rush only has one top 40 hit, and it's not Tom Sawyer.
I agree with you on that, because Tom Sawyer was and still is everywhere. I'm surprised it didn't crack the top 40 either. That's crazy.
Well, what are you going to follow up The Spirit of Radio with?
Well, I think I wanted to start out a little bit on the punk side, and I thought I would go with Ramones. Do you remember Rock and Roll Radio?
Nice.
Now, that album was produced by Phil Spector, and he wanted to take the band in a new direction. And I think he really did it. I mean, in more ways than one, but we won't go there. But it gave them a new life and just catapulted them even further into punk legend.
1980s, end of the century. You're right. It was definitely a Phil Spector produced track. It still had the punk aesthetics in place, but it was definitely a more commercial sounding Ramones band. But for me, this song, this was in my bank, and you actually scooped me on the track, because if you weren't picking this, you bet I was going to. That said, growing up, one of my favorite things to do was Friday night music night with my parents, where we'd pull out albums and turn the TV off and just drop the needle on songs we liked. And my mom had this old K-Tel compilation, and it was called Rock 80. And it had Gary Newman's Cars, Pat Benatar's Heartbreaker, Blondie's Call Me, The Knack's My Sharona, and the song that I annoyed my parents with, because every time they pulled it out, I said, "Can we play the Rock and Roll Radio song?" And that was every time she pulled it out, I'm like, Rock and Roll Radio, one of my absolute favorite childhood songs. I love the fact that growing up, watching the Shrek movies with my kids, I was able to relive that song because it was in the opening scene of Shrek the Third. And once again, I want to give a Patreon mixtaper shout out. Seeker chimed in with this one. So we're actually checking off some of the Patreon mixtaper boxes tonight, which doesn't happen all the time on the show. So I'm pretty stoked to see that.
Yeah, that's really fun. I love that. And yes, I forgot that it was in Shrek 3. Thank you for the reminder. But going back to the K-Tel, I loved those because 8-track cassettes and all of the compilation albums that came out at the time. Yeah, my mother and I usually did something like that too. Not on Fridays, it was sporadic, but I definitely remember just dropping the needle or putting an 8-track in and just going bonkers with different songs.
Yeah, K-Tel was my weekly mixtape before my weekly mixtape was my weekly mixtape.
There was a toy called 2XL. I don't know if you recall that, but it was a robot that played basically 8 tracks. I would take the K-Tel 8 tracks and put it into the 2XL.
I'm going to have to look that up. I don't remember that one.
It was a fun toy.
Very cool. I'm going to have to do some research on that. I think I'm going to follow up by keeping the punk aesthetic going. And I'm going to go with a band that I want to first start by saying, while what I'm about to say is perfectly clean, if you go and listen to the playlist, this song is not safe for work. It's from their 1992 album, White Trash, Two Heebs and a Bean. I'm going to go with NOFX. Please play this song on the radio. Once again, not safe for work. This is NOFX, and they have a style of humor that shines through on this song. The song is absolutely hysterical. It is very tongue-in-cheek, and it is perfectly safe to play on the radio up until 1:45. From that point on, all bets are off, and if you're listening with the kids in the car, don't say I didn't warn you. I'm not going to lie when I say there's always been a part of me that wonders how many DJs got fooled and played this song without actually giving it a full listen before airing it. But with that said, NOFX, please play this song on the radio.
Brian, the not safe for work songs are my favorite because I had to get my FCC license, and it was a cardinal sin. The 5 foul swear words you were unable to play on the radio, or else you would get a steep fine. So listening to not safe for work songs are my guilty pleasure, and I'm not shy to say that. It's my favorite thing to do. The more, the better.
Especially when you come from radio. I used to play a game in college radio where I would convince other DJs that I knew a song so well that they could play the uncensored version, and I can on off the channel with every curse in the song and not miss a beat. And we used to try to test each other with that on college radio. So there is something about a not safe for work song that always puts a smile on my face. So what are you going to follow up our pair of punk songs there with the Ramones and NOFX?
Well, I'm going to keep in the kind of aesthetic by going with the Hives and Rigor Mortis Radio. This is found on their latest album released in 2023 called The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons. It's an absolute banger. I love this song. I love the whole album. In fact, The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons was probably in my top 10 of the year. It's just a lot of fun, and it just gives me so much joy.
Well, I will say this, friend and frequent show guest DT Carell from Space Castle is going to be thrilled to hear that this song made the cut. It's one of his favorite bands on the planet. 2023's The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons also was something DT and I talked about on our Ultimate 2023 mixtape. I won't say which song he chose, but it is one of his favorite bands, so I guess I could spoil the fact that the Hives do get brought up on that episode. This might be my favorite song from The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons. And when you look back to a few songs ago, that Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio? It has that vibe, that bop, that cadence to it, that it really plays along with the songs we're choosing here.
That is probably subliminally why I chose this song.
The other thing I'll say about the Hive song is there's a little bit of a dancey vibe to it. And I know it's definitely in the Ramones' Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio? And there's not as much in Please Play This Song on the Radio. That's a little bit more straight ahead punk. But then we kind of come back to it with this little bit more of a dancey vibe. So it gets your head bobbing up and down and gets you grooving, even though it's a rock song. So that's what I'm going to use to follow up the Hives. And I'm going to go off their 1981 single. And I'm going to tap into that little bit of dance, little bit of rock motif and go with the Clash. This is Radio Clash, and bring in a quote unquote rock song that really is a quote unquote dance song. This is Radio Clash on pirate satellite, orbiting your living room, cashing in the Bill of Rights. Bit of a divisive track for the band because people wanted the Clash to kind of lean into their punk roots. But instead, here they were experimenting with funk and rap and almost reggae, but still keeping that punk edge to the song. So while it might be divisive to some Clash fans, I think it's an important song and one that fits really well coming out of the Hives.
I agree. I think it's kind of a crystal ball into the future with Big Audio Dynamite, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thought on the Clash. An iconic band. Many say the only band that matters. I agree. It's up there. The Clash is, by far superior to many of the other punk bands that emerged from that era.
So we've had a pretty punk-heavy side on side B so far. Outside of the opening of Rush, we had Ramones, NOFX, the Hives, the Clash. We're up to track 6. So Sherry, what are you going to follow up this kind of punk-heavy side B with?
Well, I'm going to throw in a monkey wrench and go with some hard rock from the 80s, the Autograph classic, Turn Up the Radio. Every time I hear this song, it doesn't matter what kind of mood I'm in. My spirits are instantly lifted and I just want to bang my head and turn up the radio, like they say.
It's the song's title, and it's also a command. When you hear it, you automatically want to do it. From 1984's Sign In Please, reached number 29 on the Billboard US Hot 100. We talked about MTV before. This song was in ridiculous, stupid rotation on the channel. This was the band's only mainstream hit, and they are kind of used a lot in one-hit wonder categories, which kind of bothers me because they have other great songs, but technically on the Billboard charts, that's where they fall. However, the song did have a resurgence because I want to say it was 2011, in the now classic, or cult classic, I think it's classic, but to most it's a cult, Hot Tub Time Machine. The song is featured during the opening of the movie, which I think the movie is hysterically funny. And people started playing that song again. I started hearing it a lot more. Just a great hard rock tune. One of the best from the 80s.
I agree. And Hot Tub Time Machine, that's got to be one of the funniest movies out there.
Definitely one of the more creative ones. The throwbacks were perfect. It was very self-aware, very tongue-in-cheek. Just like the NOFX song, it's really not safe for work, but it's one of those movies that just hit at the perfect time with the perfect soundtrack. You change the songs in that movie and you change the whole feel and overall spirit of the movie. And that is why Turn the Radio Up is such a perfect fit for that film. But following up Autograph, I'm going to do exactly what I did on side A. I'm going to pick a song, but I'm going to go with a cover of it instead of the original, which is going to be divisive for some. But musically, coming out of Autograph, I feel like the cover version just makes more sense. And while I love the original, and the original version reached number 13 on the US Billboard Hot 100, and that is Golden Earrings, Radar Love. However, since you brought Autograph into play here, I am going to go with White Lion's version from their 1989 Big Game album. That one actually reached number 59, not as high as the original, but it was still a Hot 100 hit for the band. And musically, Autograph into White Lion works the same way Everclear into the President of the United States of America works. Plus, I have zero evidence to back this up, so if anybody out there knows if this is a fact, I'd love to know. But this might be the last time that at least I recall a quote-unquote hit song, like I said, number 59 on the Hot 100, that included a full-blown drum solo. Obviously, the original had one, and then you think about like Edgar Wintergroup's Frankenstein, Zeppelin's Moby Dick, Iron Butterflies, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, even though most times the radio station didn't play the version with the drum solo, but I digress. Those are references. But since Radar Love came out in 89, I'm trying to think of a song that features an actual drum solo in it. If you know one, reach out and let me know. But following up, Turn Up the Radio, White Lions, Radar Love.
Great choice. I love the original, but selecting White Lion after Autograph is the natural choice.
Well, what are we going to follow up this duo of hard rock tunes with? We're at track 8 now.
Wow, this is flying fast, Brian. I'm going to go with Daryl Hall and John Oates, rest in peace, and their song Portable Radio. Every time I hear this song, it brings me so much pleasure. It's just a fun, enjoyable track to listen to.
Couldn't agree more. And just for those out there listening, as we're recording this, neither Daryl Hall nor John Oates has passed away. Sherry is resting and piecing the band itself because of the recent breakup of their musical duo, not their actual demise.
I'm sorry, I should have clarified.
Oh, no. People were probably going, wait a minute, Hall and Oates are dead? So yeah, no, they are perfectly alive, just not a band anymore. Well, it was the 4th single from 1979's Ecstatic, and like the Clash's This Is Radio Clash, this song had some pushback because some of the reviews felt like Hall & Oates were trying to kind of produce an out-and-out dance album. And while some of the songs on that album I could agree lend themselves to being more fully dance-oriented, Portable Radio kind of rocks, even though it has dancey elements to it. It's infectious, catchy, and strangely enough, didn't chart. The only song from that album to crack the US Hot 100 was Wait For Me, and that was at number 18. So again, this was kind of a deep pick, even though it was a single, and I absolutely love where you went with it.
Well, thank you. And I agree, very catchy. All of Daryl Hall and John Oates' albums were in my household. My parents were huge fans. So anytime a new album would come out, it would be on very regular rotation. And that song just stood out to me from the very beginning because of the catchy, infectious vibes that it gives off. And probably the dancing part too.
By all means, and that's kind of where I want to go. We each have one song left, and I have 2 songs left in my bank. And I feel like there's this elephant in the room song for you and I. And we haven't touched on it yet, but I'm going to gamble here because I'm going to assume it would make a great closing track, and I'm not going to go with it. So I hope you and I are on the same wavelength here, but the song I'm going to go with is going to continue that dancey vibe and maybe even up that ante a little bit. It was first released as a single in 1979 and then featured on the band's 1980 album, Too Much Pressure. I'm going with The Selector, On My Radio. While it didn't make real waves here in the US, it peaked at number 8 on the UK singles chart, and it is their most successful single. But sometimes charts be damned because The Selector is such an influential and seminal ska band that their legacy is carved in the music that they produced and inspired countless ska and ska punk bands for decades moving forward. And while the band split in 1982, they did reform and have released 17 albums, including their latest, which is 2023's Human Algebra. And once again, I won't give away a song spoiler, but The Selector was discussed on episode 28, the ultimate ska punk playlist featuring Scott Kloppenstein from Real Big Fish and the Littlest Man Band. So if you're a fan of two-tone and third wave ska and you like the pick I dropped here, go back and check out episode 28. But coming out of Daryl Hall and John Oates, we're going with The Selector, On My Radio, and my fingers are crossed for your closing track. But first, The Selector.
Well, I love that choice. A fantastic pick, Ryan. I love that band. They were seminal for the ska punk movement. And thank you. It wasn't on my radar, even though I enjoy it.
So now you have the final pick of the evening. And like I said, there's this elephant in the room song. So either we're going to be tackling that elephant in the room song or apologizing about the elephant in the room song.
Well, I can't close out this mixtape without choosing the best song about the radio by one of the most amazing groups to have ever blessed my life, and that is Queen's Radio Gaga.
All right. Okay.
Just amazing. The Live Aid performance was mind-blowing. And even the recreation in Bohemian Rhapsody was a fantastic revelation, too. I can't imagine anything better to close out this mixtape than that particular song.
I could not agree more. If you're a fan of the Live Aid performance, you could actually listen to it. The first time it was ever released was on the Bohemian Rhapsody soundtrack. When I found out that happened, I bought the soundtrack. Plus, if you're a Queen fan, the opening 20th Century Fox fanfare is performed by the current lineup of Queen, and it's a really fun way to open up playlists every now and then. I use it to start off a playlist because it always makes people's kind of ears perk up. But yeah, that Live Aid performance is on the Bohemian Rhapsody soundtrack. Number 1 in 19 countries, but only number 16 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100. United States, I'm very ashamed in us. This should have been a number 1 hit.
It should have been for weeks.
I mean,
Months.
You think about that Live Aid performance, 72,000 people clapping along with that track. The song is a moment in music history. And what a perfect way to close out side B of our Songs About the Radio playlist, which kicked off with Rush, The Spirit of Radio, Ramones, Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio, NOFX, Please Play This Song on the Radio, The Hives, Rigor Mortis Radio, The Clash, This Is Radio Clash, Autograph, Turn Up the Radio, White Lions cover of Golden Earrings, Radar Love, Daryl Hall and John Oates, Portable Radio, The Selector, On My Radio, and Queen's Radio Gaga. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear about all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Sherry, if people want to learn more about the Aquarian Weekly, how can they connect with you on social media and read some of the stuff you're writing for them?
Well, they can go to theaquarian.com and they can find my articles by searching my name, Sherry Thomas, or by clicking at the numerous articles that I'm listed under, or they can go to theaquarian.com/Sherry Thomas. And that will bring up all of my articles from the latest years.
Well, I appreciate all you do there. I enjoy reading your work every week. Sherry, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me on My Weekly Mixtape.
Thank you, Brian. It's been a lot of fun.
Remember, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can enjoy ad-free episodes of the show, become a future guest, chime in on future episode topics, and so much more. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.